And all right, so the last component of the project, the unified project, is the written response, which is very closely in line with the written response portion of the create task for our project, which will be starting medium soon. And so that's different than written responses in the past, where you're like, what did this mean to you, or what have you. You actually are going to insert segments of your code as part of the response. So, okay, question 1, what is the purpose of your program? Super easy. Question 2, insert screenshots of 2 program code segments which contain a list being used in your program. First one is how data is stored in the list, and the second one is how the list is being used. And so what would that look like? That would look like, I think this one is an okay enough example. So in order to get, actually this one's probably a little bit, well, it's fine, whatever. To get code segment screenshots, the best way to do that is probably with Snippet. If you haven't used Snippet before, or snipping tool, and when it comes up, it looks like this. Get the portion of code that you want, and let's go like this. Where's Snippet tool? The portion of code that you want, which the first portion of code that you want is the list, one of your lists, storing data, which in this case, suppose it's your main list. As far as the create task, storing data, because the way we're using them with filtered lists, you can, how does your filter list storing data? If you're doing a filtered list situation, which this is not an example of a filtered list, do I have an example of a list that filters? No, this will be fine. Okay, so let's say I want to gather, let's pretend this area is a filtered list, even though obviously it's not. Snippet tool, new, highlight what you want to snip, and then copy it, Control C, and in the place where it goes, which will be like this, don't make a copy of this document while I'm doing this, it'll look like that. Okay, and then the other one is, where's that list being used? That list is being used in this particular program, which I can close or do new. This particular program is using that list. I mean, let's say it's using it there, even though this doesn't exactly meet the requirements for this particular project. Be something like that. Control C, go to the text area and put it there. Okay, and feel free to resize it so that it's not just obliterating the document formatting. Okay, say the name of the list. So both these segments are about the same list. The first one, again, these segments aren't actually about a list for me in this example, but for you, both these segments are about the same list. One is where it's being stored, and the second is where it's being like traversed, where it's being searched, where it's being looped through. All right, and I'm going to get rid of these just so it doesn't mess things up. Okay, then down here, you're going to say the name of the list, what's stored in the list. This concept of managing complexity is comes up a lot in the create task. How does using lists make things easier? Give you a hint, you're comparing list against having a whole pile of variables. And if you had, and this was one of the first videos, in one of the first videos that we talked about lists, was when we first talked about lists, we talked about, or the video was comparing it to like declaring and initializing a ton of variables at the beginning of the program when you don't know how many variables you're going to need. And, you know, the program can change, lists can change size. And if you're filtering, you can filter things repeatedly because like you assign an empty list and add new things to it. So each time you're filtering, it's having different things. Okay, that manages complexity. Second one, or the second, or question 3. Insert a screenshot of a function definition in your program. Okay, I mean, it was in one of the requirements was having functions. And so you need to have a function. You have at least an update screen function, or no, you have to have a function because otherwise you can't filter by a user's input. Okay, something needs to be waiting on what the user does. You know, they do a drop down and you run your loop comparing something against the user's text versus whatever you're looping through. So you'd have to have a function. And so you're going to make a snippet of that, copy, go to where you want to put it. Feel free to delete the words there, the instruction. Again, reformatting is never a bad thing. And describe, what does the function do? How does the function contribute to the overall functionality program? You're just comparing or discussing like what it does. The ability to call this several times based on different user inputs makes the app happen. Okay, and let me get rid of that. And that's it. All right, so make sure you submit that to the assignment on Canvas. And if you're missing any work in general, fill out the late work request form. I will probably not get to all of the late work requests before interims, but that shouldn't matter. And you do not, once again, you do not need to fill out the late work request form for anything that's a Google Doc submitted to Canvas. Only for code.org assignments. All right, any questions about this, about the actual assignments? Excellent. All right, if you have